absurd fatwa, or so-called fatwa, that if this is not some made-up lies by a Christian who asked the question, but regardless, I'm going to assume that this is correct, and I will still refute it for him. As we've seen already, folks, and brothers and sisters in Islam, during the biblical days, there were no real standards on sex. Moses and his men raped girls who were as young as 3, and they were ordered by God in the Bible, according to the Bible. I do not believe this is true, but according to the Bible, they were ordered to kill all non-virgin girls and all the boys, of course, which violates the Bible's first command of thou shalt not kill, but that's another subject. But as we've seen, non-virgin girls were killed, virgin girls as young as 3 were raped, and all boys and men and women were killed. So as we know, as we clearly see rather, there was no standards on sex. Now let me prove that during the pagan days of before Islam in Arabia, and even during the early days of Islam, Muslims had no standards on sex either. Since the Arabs during paganism, during the pagan days, they used to even worship their idol gods in literal nakedness. Nakedness, exposing your private parts, whether you're a man or a woman, was something not big deal among the Arabs. It was okay. People used to see each other's naked, and they did not care. And of course, you can imagine the sexual lust and immorality and sins and adulteries and fornication, etc., that used to happen among the Arabs, the pagan Arabs. Let us look at the following narrations from Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. Okay, now keep in mind that Aisha herself was given to the Prophet, so I'm not saying that the marriage of the Prophet was wrong, or that what the Prophet did was wrong. What I'm saying is, it looks weird to us today, and it looks like a pedophilia to us today, because our standards today are different than their standards 1500 years ago. And certainly their standards 1500 years ago were even better than the biblical standards during Moses' times. So, and also don't forget that Aisha's parents themselves and her immediate relatives, like uncles and grandparents, etc., they were the ones who gave her to the Prophet in marriage. So the Prophet did not steal her on a white horse, for instance, and take her away. No, she was married to him legitimately among the people. Everybody celebrated the wedding, and her parents gave her to the Prophet. Anyway, let me narrate the following narrations that prove that the pagans used to worship their gods in literal nakedness. This is from Sahih Bukhari, Volume 2, Book number 26, narration number 689. Narrated Abu Huraira, in the year prior to the last Hajj of the Prophet, when Allah's Apostle made Abu Bakr the leader of the pilgrims, the latter, that's Abu Bakr, sent me in the company of a group of people to make a public announcement. No pagan is allowed to perform Hajj, that's pilgrimage, after this year, and no naked person is allowed to perform Tawaf, that is going around the Kaaba, which is a black cubic building. Also, let us look at Sahih Muslim, book number 43, narration number 7179. That's Sahih Muslim, book number 43, narration number 7179. Narrated Ibn Abbas reported, during the pre-Islamic days, women circumambulated the Kaaba nakedly and said, who would provide clothes to cover the one who is circumambulating the Kaaba, so that she would cover her private parts? And then she would say, today will be exposed the whole or the part and what is exposed, I shall not make it lawful. It was in this connection that the verse was revealed. Allah Almighty said, adorn yourself at every place of worship. That's Noble Verse chapter 7 verse 31. Also narrated Abu Huraira in Sahih Bukhari, volume 5, book number 59, narration number 649, that during the Hajj, in which the Prophet had made Abu Bakr as-Siddiq as chief of the Hajj before the Hujjat al-Wada', on the day of Nahr, Abu Bakr sent him along with a group of people to announce to the people, no pagan is permitted to perform Hajj, again that is pilgrimage, after this year, and nobody is permitted to perform Tawaf, that is going around of the Kaaba, that's the black cubic building, naked. So as we clearly see, brothers and sisters in Islam and ladies and gentlemen, the pagan Arabs had no standards on sex. Sex was not a big deal to them. Seeing somebody naked was not a big deal, was not something big deal to them. And certainly marriage with young girls during the biblical and Islamic days was something common. Even today in our world, we have people in the Amazon, in Brazil and Africa and Far East, in Asia and Middle East, that people do marry at young age. In fact, on my website, I have provided, a Muslim sent me an article that a girl, a 9-year-old girl from Thailand, gave birth to a baby when she was 9 years old. That means she got pregnant at the age of 8. So basically, since Allah Almighty Himself allowed for girls as young as 9 or even younger to give birth, as the case of the Thai girl that I just mentioned, which you can see her picture and read the article on my website. You can visit www.answering-christianity.com/aisha.htm, aisha.htm. You'll see the link there. So basically, if God Almighty allows for physically allowed girls to get pregnant, then who are we today, technically, who are we today to say that it is wrong for a girl to get married at the age, say, 10? It is certainly not practical for us today to marry young girls, because today a girl who is even younger than 18 years old is not really good or ready for marriage yet. But that's because our standards today are different. It's not because it is wrong. Like I said, if God Almighty Himself enabled these girls to become women, to be able to get pregnant, give birth, and raise children, infant babies, their own children, as mothers do, as their mothers raise them. If God Almighty enabled them to do this, then who are we today to say that people who did it during the Islamic days and the biblical days were wrong to do it, or were pedophiles for doing it? Also, according to the Roman Catholics and the Jews, Mary, the mother of Jesus, she got pregnant with Jesus. They believe that Mary got pregnant with Jesus between the ages of 11 and 14. Again, between the ages of 11 and 14. So even Mary, according to the Roman Catholics, was, quote, a baby, end quote, according to our standards today. Does this make God Almighty a pedophile for allowing her to get pregnant at such a young age? But anyway, folks, at any rate, as you clearly saw from my demonstration in this audio session, Sam Shamoun's points regarding the Prophet thawing Aisha are doubtful to begin with. he had no references at all. All he said, all he could come up with is say there's a fatwa, a verdict for this. But when we checked his resources, there was nothing. It was only someone who claimed that there was a fatwa without giving references. So we don't know if this person is telling a lie or not. And the response to his post was that it was not confirmed that the Prophet did thigh Aisha, but however it is confirmed that the Prophet, that Aisha rather, was given to the Prophet by her parents in marriage at the age of 7, and he did consummate with her at the age of 9. But even when I assumed that this did take place, I still proved that it was according to the standards back then. It was still okay, because Aisha was technically the Prophet's wife, even though she was